Each of us has a Christian vocation. We're all called to serve God in different ways. I'm just interested to see today a bit more about your vocation, perhaps from your childhood to becoming a priest.
Yes, I grew up in a Christian family. I was baptised an Anglican, but by the time I was, I'm not sure, 8 or 9, I'd really lost touch with a sense of Christianity, and I was calling myself an atheist when I went to high school. So as a teenager, there was a lot of drifting and a lot of searching when I look back on it. But eventually a Catholic friend took me to Mass with her, and I was very struck by the prayerfulness in the church and the obvious faith, a sense that something important was here. I think it was God's presence really in the church looking back. I started to read about Christianity and Catholicism more, to pray, and eventually I became a Catholic when I was 19. I was received and really felt I'd found a home for my Christian faith, and I could put my roots down there. So when I went to university at 19, it was a great opportunity to get involved in my Catholic chaplaincy. I met a lot of great Catholic friends, had some real mentors and examples in the priests and the sisters around me, and it was a good foundation for me as I began to think about vocation, and then eventually went to seminary when I was 25. I became a Catholic, as I've said, when I was 19, so there wasn't any sense that I was thinking about becoming a priest at that time. The whole world of faith was new to me, and I was just, I was a novice, a beginner, and just happy to be living my faith, praying, going to Mass. But over those few years, especially at university, I felt a real sense of wanting to speak about my faith, wanting to share my faith, and I wouldn't have put it in these words, but I feel as though the vocation to priesthood was growing at that time. And the other aspect of that was I knew 2 or 3 really wonderful priests, and they really inspired me in the way, in their joy, in their faith, but in the way they were so wanting to help other people in their faith through their prayer, the sacraments, just the generosity of their hearts really. And eventually I put the two together. I put the sense in my own heart that I was being called to something with the priests that I knew, and felt that there was a call to the priesthood here. It took a while, but I took the step, going to talk to my bishop, and eventually was accepted to join the diocesan priesthood and go to seminary.
In society today, there seems to be quite a lot of angst for various reasons, but that we're programmed to, in a sense, try to be happy. I wonder if you could say something about that search.
This is a topic very dear to me, because when I went to do my graduate studies, the topic of my thesis, to put it in summary, was how to be happy. Mm-hmm. Now, not that I was giving advice to people on that topic, but just the question of the search for happiness, I think, is a key one today. Because on the one hand, in many people's lives, there is a sense of frustration and incompletion. But on the other hand, for many, many people, there's a real sense of longing for something, of hoping in something, of having a heart that's made for happiness, for fulfillment, but not quite knowing where to find that, how to find that. And I think for the church, it's a great opportunity for dialogue, because as a church, we're not just standing there saying no to things. You know, our whole moral code, our whole moral vision is about inviting people to live a richer life, a truly happy life, to follow the Lord joyfully, to find out what's truly important. So I think the question of happiness it's an important one for every person, but it's also an important one for us as Christians to be able to dialogue with the wider world. I think some people look at Christianity, the Catholic Church, and think that it's about following a set of rules or that it's constricting. But I think truly, and in my experience and looking at the lives of many other people, it's really about discovering a true freedom. Because if we can follow Christ, if we can follow this invitation to love, in other words, to give our hearts joyfully, to serving others, to living the life we're meant to be living, it can only lead us to a more fulfilling and a richer life. So I think that the invitation there is to embrace something bigger rather than to enter into something smaller.
I'm interested in the idea of dialogue, as you said, with other faiths, with other denominations. In what way do we evangelise as a church? What are the ways to build bridges?
Some people today are a bit cynical and think people aren't very interested in truth, for example, but I don't agree with them actually. I think there is a real hunger for truth and meaning in people's lives. I think many people today and a lot of our culture, there's a hopefulness, a sense that I'm longing for something, I'm searching for something, but I'm not quite sure what the roots of this, what the foundations are going to be. So I think there is an interest in questions of truth and meaning and trying to find some moral foundations for society and for family life. So the dialogue with other people, I think, is trying to find some common questions. And I think for a church, as a church, it's not about imposing answers, but as Pope Benedict says, offering people an opportunity to enter into something, proposing something, not imposing something, and really trying to find some common ground in areas of faith and morality and the search for meaning. And then, obviously, as part of that, helping people to see the riches that Jesus offers us, our faith in Christ, our faith in the church.
I think you said proposing, not imposing. I think they're the words of Blessed John Paul II, perhaps. And I'm just thinking about Novo Millennio Iuniente and the new millennium promoted by the Jubilee year, and his sort of proclamation of a new evangelization, perhaps from Paul VI onwards, but he's the great Pope of the new evangelization. Could you say something about that?
I think this is a wonderful phrase, new evangelization, and it's a surprising one, because in many ways you'd think, well, evangelization is always new. Every culture, every century has had to think about what is it to evangelize today. But as you say, I think Pope John Paul II had a particular view about the importance of a new evangelization, partly because people have had doubts about the place of evangelization, partly because for many people it seems as if we're in a post-Christian society. That's one of the phrases used, isn't it? One of the phrases used. So I think we're thinking about how to re-propose the gospel, how to share our faith in a culture that in some ways feels as if it knows Christianity well and doesn't need it anymore. So we're trying to help people to rediscover the beauty of the Christian faith. We're trying to propose the Christian faith, to share it in new ways. And I think for all those reasons, the new evangelization is hugely important for the church.
Pope Benedict visited Britain last year, and his trip was acclaimed as a great success. I know there was a group formed called Catholic Voices, which was, I think, mainly comprised of lay people to assist not only with that trip and getting the Catholic message out there, but also does continue?
It does, yeah. Catholic Voices, without a doubt, was one of the great fruits of Pope Benedict's visit to Britain. Before the visit, as you might have heard, there was a lot of negativity in the media and in society about the Pope's visit and, to be honest, about Catholic life in general. And a group of lay people were concerned about this, but more than that, they wanted to do something positive. And they said, what we need is to train a group of ordinary lay people to be able to speak about their faith, not so much to be spokespersons, but just to give witness to the goodness and the ordinariness of the Catholic faith, and to have the skills to do that. So the core group developed this project, Catholic Voices. They got together a team of about 25 people, and they trained them quite intensively over 6 months in the areas of theology and controversy that they would need. So it was a kind of training in apologetics. But also they trained them in the media skills that they would need, how to be interviewed, how to deal with questions and all sorts of media situations, and they tried to give them the spiritual foundations in prayer and support. And at the end of that project, these 25 people, they did a great string of interviews over those 4 days of the papal visit. I think over 150 interviews on 24-hour news, radio, TV, websites, comment boxes, and they really made an impact and gave people a sense that there's something to celebrate in Catholic faith, and there's some good news here.